If we don't have a problem around farmers, headers, issues in the country, it does not make any sense for you to start saying you want to develop, any policy around this. Is it also fiscally viable? What this means is that what will it cost us to actually do this? Are you saying we should spend 70% or 90% of our entire budget in solving this problem? Remembering that that is not only the problem we also have in the country. And then how does this align with signed treaties? What are the other legal instruments you want to refer to? Oh, you can say, for example, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says A, B, C, and D. Oh, the Vote Not Fight already says that young people ages so and so can now contest, right? And so that was why that policy actually made sense. Be clear about the problems. You can't be ambiguous about it. It needs to be clear that, look, this policy is trying to address this particular problem. And then be sure that you actually have transparency in preparation. Who were the people who got involved, for example? So if you look at that document, it was going to be wrong of us to write anything about, the election without actually including or referencing the numero uno institution for election regulation in Nigeria, which is INEC. So we got our data from INEC. And then by the time we were also done, we also shared what we had with INEC. Now, have planned implementation of the policies. So how are you planning to actually implement, this document you have put together? How are you planning to ensure the implementation of this document? Several times, how that policy is implemented may not be in your hands, will not be in your hands, but it is still your responsibility to ensure that you can talk about how you think that particular policy, how the implementation of that policy should actually go. The next slide. Okay, so what are policy, instruments? You have regulatory laws, right? You have
Okay, I guess we lost Mr. Shola. We expect him back soon.
Okay, I think I went away briefly. I think that was the internet. Sorry about that. Someone wrote a book about sports in Nigeria, and when he was interviewed as to how he got rich information about as far back as 1950, 1960, he explained that, look, all he had to do was to go to the National Archive. Nigeria has, I think, about 3 of them. There's one in Kaduna, there's one in Cross River, I think, and then there's one in Ibadan as well, right? You have a lot of old materials there, and so you can see things from the past, right? A lot of new newspaper clippings. So you can say that you want to see a copy of New Nigerian newspaper, which used to be the major newspaper in the north, and then you see how issues have been reported. What were the solutions that were provided to some of these issues that we are actually facing also today? The next slide. Again, if you talk about policies, what you need to understand is that it is heavy in terms of documentation. I won't shy away, from saying that it is heavy in terms of documentation. You have to crunch the numbers. I talked about data, for example. You have to get enough data. It might be something just within your community there. You have to use documents like the Freedom of Information Act. You have to write letters, for example, to tease out information from government institutions. You have to ask for their annual report. We were working on one for the NYC at some point, and I know that we had to write the NYC to say that, look, we know that you have an annual report. Share a copy of your annual report with us. And for some reasons, government institutions in Nigeria are always worried when you are asking for documents, right? And then it puts you in a position of power. And then we have to say, look, we're just asking for a document based on what you have done. Naturally, this is something you should even disclose to the public by putting this on your website. So if it's not on your website, that's the reason why we are asking for this. And they ask, where are you from? What do you want to use the document for? Why do you need the document and all of that? So policy making, policy documentation, writing policy briefs, writing fact sheets depends heavily on a lot in terms of documentation. The next slide. Okay, so before you analyze a policy or a piece of legislation, the first thing you need to do is to understand it, right? So we want to analyze Nigeria's policy around it might be something around girl child education, right? That might be something that interests you. You want to analyze Nigeria's policy about say youth policy, right? I just showed you a policy, about youth. So you can take that document, for example. So you can analyze that policy in the dark. You don't have a copy of the policy itself, and then you now want to begin to analyze it. You don't understand what the issues are. So if you wanted to do something about that, then you need to also find somebody from the Ministry of Youth to ask a few questions, right? You want to do a policy brief on transcript sourcing in Nigeria. For several of us who are graduates, you know how this is. You finish from the university, for you to get your transcripts, you might lose an admission simply because you are not able to get your transcript on time. So if I wanted to do an analysis of the various institutional policies in our various universities and polytechnics and colleges of education on transcript, I would need to find people who work in the transcript unit and also ask them a few questions so that I'm not just analyzing the transcript issue in the dark. Maybe we are not even doing something right when we go to apply for transcripts. So a number of questions should be in mind when reading or discussing the policies. What are the things you are trying to solve? What's your justification? What's the problem, right? So these are the things you need to majorly consider when trying to analyze a policy document. The next slide. All right, so some of the questions you want to ask is, who is the major beneficiary of the policy? Who are you analyzing this policy? Who are you, really analyzing this policy on? Right? Who is the major person that you're actually ensuring reads the policy or understands the policy? Who do you want to see the policy? Who is your primary target for that policy document? If you were going to do a policy brief about transcript sourcing by Nigerian graduates, is it the university that you want to see the policy, or you want young people to see the policy and begin to mount pressure on the university or the polytechnic? Right? So you need to be clear about that. Right? And then be clear about who your secondary target is so that you can put content that will interest the person. So if we're going to do a policy about, how universities are losing millions of revenue, right, through poor transcript handling, right? So what it means is that our major target is the university. The university would like the fact that you are showing them how they are leaking in terms of their revenue generating, opportunities. That look, if you're able to do transcript properly, it means that maybe you charge 5,000 naira per person and you're generating maybe 1,000 transcripts every week. It means that you are getting about 100,000 naira. So you do the maths, you're getting about 500,000 naira every week. Who loses if the policy is properly implemented? Right? So it's also very important that we say very clearly that, look, if this policy is not properly implemented, this is the person that would lose. Is it the university that will lose, or the graduates of the university that would lose? You could also be showing the university that, look, if your students are not able to get this admission into Ivy League university, in another 10 or 20 years' time, when you are doing alumni reunion, you possibly will not have your student graduating from places like Harvard. You possibly will not be able to signpost and say, well, we're proud of our graduates who are in about 30 institutions, Ivy League institutions across the world. If that policy is also implemented, what will be the effect or the consequences in, say, about 5 years from now? I just mentioned one. How does the policy affect marginalized or vulnerable group? So in the policy that we just showed you as an example, the vulnerable group that was being identified basically were what? Were youths, because they were the ones that were trying to show strategies to say that, look, if you can win 11,000 votes in each local government, it means that you are well on your way to becoming the governor of the state. So he's saying in essence that if you divide each local government into 10, 11 portions, all you need is 1,000 votes in each of the community. So it means that your strategy, for example, might be, look, I'm going to find those young people. This is what year is this? This is 2021. I want to contest election in 2023. And then one of the things I want to do, I want to show young people with this policy briefs is that, look, if I set up a tutorial center in each of these communities, 11 communities, I possibly will find 1,000 young people who will come to that tutorial center. They will get education for free for their WAEC or for their JAMB examination. And then I would be able to mobilize them to go and pick up their voters registration card. And eventually, when the time comes for election, I will tell them to vote for me, right? So this does not necessarily have to just be about you. It could also be that you are targeting a particular vulnerable group or a marginalized group. Is it very complex? Is this something that can be easily understood by people? You also have to ask yourself, if I say, for example, I wanted to do a policy brief about cryptocurrency, right? A lot of us were hearing about cryptocurrency for the first time. What's this cryptocurrency? So there's even how young people are making money in Nigeria, and they're not telling us, their forefathers anything, right? A policy, for example, will now be documented. Are you documenting that policy and sending it to the CBN? Or you are documenting the policy and sending it to the young people that are affected by cryptocurrency and showing them that, look, forget about what the CBN has said. One of the things you can do is that go and get a domiciliary account and get a foreign account and then begin to trade on your foreign account. And these are the countries that have accepted, for you to do that. Or your policy could actually be targeted, your policy brief could actually be targeted at the CBN to say, dear CBN, these are countries, for example, that initially rejected this policy. 7 years later, they came back and said that, look, this is the future. So this is what you can do to regulate the space. So instead of saying that most people who actually do this are doing this because of fraud, it's just like saying that, because a lot of people use the internet for fraud, a number of people use the internet for fraudulent things, we are going to cut off the internet in Nigeria, right? That you cannot cut this off. This is what you should do. Right? So that's the way to do that. And instead of just doing that, you could actually speak to a number of persons who are major cryptocurrency world traders, a number of banks who, for example, have been keeping money for cryptocurrency, individuals as well, to say, look, how has this affected you? Do we have capital flight in the country? Do we have revenue flights in the country because of this? So there are quite a number of questions that you need to ask yourself as you actually go ahead to actually develop that fact sheet, or you go ahead to actually develop that policy document. The next slide. Okay, I'm trying to look at, a few of the questions. I want to ask you something about Commonwealth Scholarship. Okay, so I don't know anything about Commonwealth Scholarship. I'm the wrong person to come to on this. You're on point, but my concerns are, how do you get rid of fear of the government in power, as some youth have been discouraged from participating? However, some youth don't want to support their fellow youth in this regard. They want to block the pipe. Northeast is the region where the youth are seen as data boy, could talk not viable, even though some states. Okay, so I'll come back. I'll come back to this. All right, so who is a major supporter of the policy and why is it being supported? These are also things you need to ask. If we write a policy brief on cryptocurrency, for example, so we had the vice president give some form of nod to say that, look, maybe this was a wrong decision by the CBN. So if I wrote that kind of policy brief, for example, I would quote the vice president, right? Because again, I will quote the vice president. I will send the draft of the policy brief to the vice presidency's office and then see what, have their feelers about it. Who brought the issue that the policy is trying to address to the attention of decision makers, right? Who is bringing this issue? Who would bring the issues to decision makers? So the House Committee Chairman on Information, for example, House Committee Chairman on Finance will be the right person to bring the issue of the policy I have written, for example, on cryptocurrency and how it affects the Nigerian youths. Is there a financial cost that comes with the implementation of the policy? You also need to be clear. This will not cost the country anything. This will just cost us very few resources. You need to be clear. Can the policy be enforced? And if it can be, who is responsible for doing so? So the policy we have put in place now is that, look, you cannot abuse anyone online. That's the policy, right? And a lot of people have actually signed on to that policy. So what can be done is to now start saying, we want to start enforcing. Somebody will need to monitor. Someone will ensure that this is exactly what happens invariably. Is there a penalty if the policy is not implemented? So again, we're already talking about, policy advancement. If this policy is not implemented, what is the penalty, right? For you to begin to talk about penalty, it means that you're beginning to push that, look, how do we make this policy into a law invariably? The next slide. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So in conclusion, let me move very quickly. Let me conclude. So is this consistent, with human rights in your country? What are the things that you also need to look at? These are also, some of the things you also need to look at when you actually do this. Okay, how consistent is this with what you actually have in the country? And I should say, as I begin to wrap up as well, that um, some of the issues you can also look at, I mentioned quite a number of them in the northeastern part of the country. You have unemployment, so you can write about unemployment. You want to do a policy brief on the quality of education. You want to look at the issue of malnutrition in the north. The crisis in the northeastern part of the country now, any child that was born when that crisis was starting will now be 11 years old. So 11 years old child does not know any other thing but that crisis in the northeastern part of the country. There are mental health issues now because of how people live. You have ungoverned spaces, and that's a space that our kidnappers, our bandits are taking advantage of. Those forests that nothing is actually happening there. You have the issue of armed proliferation as well, which means that a lot of arms are coming into small arms are coming into the country from our unmanned borders. There's a maternal health issue because of the poor healthcare system. And again, you also have gender-based violence because people are spending more time, with one another than ordinarily they should. One very important thing again I should mention here is your dissemination. So I just shared with you a copy of the policy brief, right? That's why you can actually see that document. Be sure that you disseminate online, offline, make sure that it is available, be deliberate also about this. And then in mobilizing the community, find a person that can work with you. When you want to take this back to the community or you want to start your conversation in the community, find someone that can actually act as a liaison, who can take you into the community, who can go and prepare the place before you actually come. Ensure to have a meeting point and then keep to time, right? Use a subject they are familiar with. Don't start talking about, armed proliferation if the people are, talking about the issue of hunger, how they find food. So you need to connect arms and food, right? Ensure you get all the feedback in the room, the good one, the bad one, make sure you get everything. And then eventually when your policy brief or your fact sheet is ready, go back to all the persons that supported you with fact, with information, and also share the same with them. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I have to end at this point because of our time. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here to listen to me. Thank you.
Wow, Mr. Shola. it's very listening to you. Are you there? Are you with me?
I am. I can hear you clearly.
I wish there is time so I go through the position papers, the fact sheets. I don't know. Can you just talk about them briefly so that our
Okay.
youth leaders can get
Okay.
to see them?
Okay, so a fact sheet basically just tells you, look, these are the facts. 70% of young people here are sick. 3 out of 4 young people here, for example, are this. There was a fact sheet that was beamed by CNN yesterday. So Israel already has about 93% vaccine absorption. So it means out of every 10 persons in Israel, 9 persons already had gotten the COVID-19 vaccine, right? That's a fact. So you put the facts on the paper, right? Facts don't lie. So a position paper, for example, is to say that, look, as a group, this is where we stand, right? It's saying that, look, as a union of students, we think that the vice chancellor should have done A, B, C, and D. We think that the bossa should have actually extended registration on the portal for school registration. So that's a position paper. Where do you stand as a group? A position paper basically works for a group. And then you have the policy brief, which has a mix of all of this. You have the fact sheet component, you have your position where you talk about the issues and your recommendation. You also have, and a broader highlight of the issue when it comes to a policy. So a policy brief is, the one that, brings all of this together. And then whatever it is you write in the age where people have a lot of, short memory retention, short attention span, you want to make sure that you bring in elements of graphics. If you can use video, you can even do, a policy brief in a video form. That would be, pretty good innovation also on your part. So I hope this helps us in actually making the distinction between these three.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shola, for that. Time did not. Time is too short, actually. But thank you for that amazing presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for having me as well.
Yes, we appreciate your commitment towards the youth civic engagement training. We're looking forward to more engagement with you when regards to every team member of One Life Initiative.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
And
much.
recently, I've not been seeing your piece on the newspapers.
I'll be back soon. I'll be back soon.
Okay, it's
All
okay.
right. Thank
Mr.
you.
Sholai handles some columns. He's a columnist in one of the big national dailies.
Thank you so much. Anybody needs to reach out. My email address is on the slide. I'm sure when it's shared, you would have that information as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, they will.
And have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, welcome everyone. Uh, I will now delay us. We'll just go into the next session. I hope I'll be able to do that within a very short time. From last week, we started having special engagement around policy matters. Like some of you have been in the picture. Hold on, please. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing on youth policy issues arising in Northeast Nigeria. If you remember, or if you can recall, last week, Mr. Farouk started sharing on introduction to national and global policies, especially those pertaining to youth. Then he now went further to how you can engage elected officials on the use of policies, on those policies, especially on youth-friendly policies. And Mr. Sholan has gone further by telling us ways we can do that, by telling us about policy developments and policy advancement. He shared on policy briefs, fact sheets, he shared on position papers. And it's important that we begin to write on these matters. I wrote a position paper about a few weeks ago on this matter that I'm going to be sharing with us. Very important. We all have the picture of what it is so we can pursue them in our respective zones. So in my session today, I'm going to be focusing on matters around the youth policies in the Northeast. So are we together, everybody? Yes, I guess so. So if you're with me, I will just like Ms. Shola did. Can I see your chat if you're with me? Okay, yes. Thank you, Suleiman, for responding. Okay, it means people are actually with me. So I want to take another different approach to taking to for this session. This is the one that we are used to. So just take note, everyone, and let's follow and enjoy ourselves. Okay, I want to share with us statistics, then starting with the continental statistics, that is international, then I'll go to national, and then I'll now stop uh, at the local. Now, see this, everybody. Sorry, I have some things on my screen that I need to adjust. Nigeria has a significantly growing youth population. Over 50% of the state population are below 15 years of age. That is for a place like Bauchi State. Are we together, everyone? So, you know, all of us are already in the picture of of the number of young people that we have in Nigeria and also in your respective states. But briefly on the chart, can I see if you can still remember on your statistics? What are your estimates of the total population of Nigeria and then the total population of your state? So just put your state and put the total number of millions that you have in your state. So let me hear from us quickly. Okay, some of us are still typing. Bauchi has 4 million according to Mohammed Aminu. Okay, can I hear more? I'm going to be telling us some of the statistics. Yes, let's hear more. What's your estimate? The state where you reside, how many people do you think reside in your state? Okay, because of time, let me just rush through. Aminu, yes, this statistics is a very old one. Currently, Bauchi has 7.3 million people. Bauchi has 7.3 million people. Is that big? And do you know that out of those 7.3 million people that Bauchi has, 50% of them are below 15 years. Nigeria's population was estimated at about 220 million people. And out of those 220 million people, young people occupy more than 70% of that population. But Gombe has about 3.4 or 3.7 million people. Gombe State. Adamawa State has close to Bauchi's with about 6.5 to 6.8 million people. So this population, you can imagine the number of people that we have in our state. And half of those young people are young people. So for us in Leadtots, what is our drive? And for me personally, what is my drive? Look at the questions I've put down. How do we ensure that Nigeria benefits from these demographic dividends? These plenty young people that we have, how do we ensure that Nigeria benefits from this population? How do we ensure that Nigerian youth compete at the global level? Not only due to sheer numbers. Yeah, when I say sheer numbers, oh, we are boasting Nigeria, Bauchi State in the Northeast, we are the most populated, we have the highest number of young people in Bauchi State. And so what? The young people in Bauchi State, can they compete with other young people in other states? The young people in Taraba State, can they compete with other young people in Ghana, in Kenya, or in China, or in India, or in US? That's the question that should be running in your mind as young people who want to transform the society. Because it's amazing that we have so much young people, yet we don't know what to do with them. We don't know how to maximize this. The last question I put is, what is the future that we are creating for these young people? What's the kind of future we are creating? Are we creating a future that is going to be debt inclined? Look at the several debts that we're talking about. So that's the question that I hope to ask us. And I'm sure that I would like to see some of your reactions on the chat box. Let's look at also in the African context. The African youth are better educated, but less employed than their parents. These are statistics from the Mo Ibrahim State of Africa report. African youth are more educated or better educated, but less employed than their parents. This idleness, is it sustainable? So on the continent, too many African young people are either looking for a job, or they are not studying, or they are less employed. So that's the situation. So if we're having this kind of thing for these young people today, the question that you should be asking yourself is, what needs to be done to increase the global competitiveness of the African youth? What is missing? Why is it that our young people are more educated but less unemployed? Is it that there are health issues? Is it that there are education factor that maybe the quality of education has dropped? So you can, all these questions I'm asking, you can be putting your reaction on the chat box so we can have conversations along that line. Is it that young people don't have access to financial help to start up business and become employed? Is it that the employer's motivation is too small? That's why they are going outside Africa or going outside Nigeria to look for better jobs, better offers? Or is it that, all those questions? how can we bring back the skill diaspora? We have a lot of young people who have traveled outside this continent and they are doing well, contributing to the development of other continents. Yet in Africa, we are losing skilled laborers in those lines. So the another question is, how do we deal with the lost generation from various wars? Imagine the millions of people that Boko Haram had had killed. How do we deal with this lost generation? So the questions before us is, are there state commitments towards youth development in the Northeast? What is the current state of youth development and what should be done? Those are questions that we should begin to ask ourselves. Now, on this issue of youth participation in politics and in governance, let me share with us the Roger Hart model. The Roger Hart model. Roger Hart came up with a ladder of youth participation where that is trying to explain the different styles or levels at which young people are being carried along in governance. The first one in the lowest background is manipulation. Manipulation. What do we mean when we say young people are being manipulated? It means adults use young people to support an aim or project, but they claim that youths inspire the project. Many of us, that's what we're experiencing in our state. You see a lot of young people running around some adults, and they are the ones that they manipulate the young people to run a project. Then when they are commissioning the project, they paint it as if young people inspire the project. How we did it in support of young people. How young people, we are very committed to young people. That's why we built this. Were young people involved? No, they only used young people. Decoration. In this level, young people used to help or uphold a project, but adults don't claim that young people inspire the project. You see, manipulation, they say they can give you credit. Young people inspired it. It's young people that bet it because this is what they asked for. But in this case, nothing. You just see young people, you see a program, they will call all every young person. I'll be part of it, put on uniform, put on all your face caps, and come out en masse. You understand? But they never claim that young people inspire the project. That's decoration. They decorate the project with young people. This one is one of the most common type that we're experiencing recently. Tokenism, token, where young people seem to be involved, but they have little or no say in making decisions regarding the project. Do you understand what it means? You see, as I'm talking about all of these things, I want you to, on the chat box, to be putting down your own, what you think is happening in your own state and why you think it is like this. If you think it's manipulation that is the levels of participation in your state, tell us manipulation and give us practical reasons why you think it's manipulation. Yes, let me continue. So token, you see young people, they are giving us SAs, they are giving us PAs, they are giving us SAs on social media, SAs on new media. And they don't consider young people as commissioners, they don't consider young people as ministers, they don't consider young people in major. So we don't have a decision, we don't have a say in the decision making process. This token, you give us a token to shut our mouth. So this is another level of participation. Another level of participation is assigned. Young people are assigned and informed. Young people are assigned specific duties and be informed how and why they are involved, but are not really involved in designing the project. We're just giving responsibilities. Okay, young people, come, all the student union, come, let's plan this thing. And then they just tell you what to do. You're not part of those who initiated it. The school will just come and use us, and as what they do is just give us instruction what they should do. Many of us experience same. This other level is young people are consulted. Young people give recommendations, and the projects are run by adults. No, this is another level. The only thing they do is they consult and inform us, but the entire process of running it is done by adults. So that's another level of participation. This is another level of participation. Adults initiate, young people share. Adults initiate and implement, but The decision making about the project is shared with young people. That's another level. Another higher level is young people initiate and young people manage. Young people initiate and run the project with only supportive involvement of adults in advisory role. But look at the peak of the participation level. Young people initiate and adults involved. Young people initiate projects and decision making is shared with adults. So in your state or in your respective communities, and which of these levels apply? And why do you think these levels apply? I want to see it in our comments, on our comments section. So there are several guiding principles for women and youth inclusion, which I will not go into in this session. All of us understand that there are big benefits for youth participation or when youth are prioritized in government. You know, when youth become engaged, you develop skills needed to be an effective leader. How many of you have participated in community development service in the past? You realize that by being involved in those leadership responsibilities or community development programs, your skills are being developed. You begin to see yourself in active leadership. You understand? It creates a sense of belonging and purpose to young people. When you're involved, you know that there's nothing about you without you. It gives you a sense of belonging. That yes, I'm involved. I have a stake in this. Young people face many issues, but these issues go unheard. Therefore, the best way to help solve the many issues faced by young people will be through participation, which is a tool used to take action for development. In addition to bringing fresh perspectives, young people often have direct knowledge and insight into issues that are not accessible to adults. For instance, how can the adults understand issues around cryptocurrencies? You understand? How can they understand issues around IT? That's why most of our ministries and states, there are no IT compliance activities or programs, apart from building computer labs and, we need something more. So if young people are not involved, these fresh ideas cannot be introduced. So now, Leadtots few years ago began to meet with youth stakeholders to find out what are the youth gap in the respective states. And we came up with some issues, and take note of it because these are some of the matters that we expect you to pick up and advance at your levels. Number one, we realize that youth are not given priority. For instance, you see the Minister of Youth, they match the Minister of Youth and Sports, or Minister of Social Justice and Minister of Sports. Different states have different ways they match theirs. You can tell us on the chat box with your own, the name or the nomenclature used for the Ministry of Youth in your respective states. So you see, resource allocation to those two ministries, to that one ministry, cannot favor youth development. For instance, when you go to NYC, almost 80% of NYC funds, like NYC, National Minister of Youth Development, National Minister of Youth Development in Abuja, Federal Minister of Youth Development, sorry, more than 80% of their funds goes into NYSC. You get the picture? So what is it that is allocated for youth development, for youth empowerment and co? So such merger reduces the activeness and funding of youth development programs in the various states. Then we realize that the Minister of Youth, we call it Minister of Youth, yet the ministry is not youthful. Youths are not well represented in the agencies and ministries dedicated for their service. Let's look at it. The Commission of Minister of Youth and Sports, they are not youth, they are not in the age range of the youth. Many of them, they are even adults. The DG of youth agencies, like in Bauchi, you have BASIWO, Bauchi State Commission for Youth and Women Development. Those agencies that are supposed to service young people, they are not young people. So, it means there is no youthfulness in the ministry. Enter the Minister of Youth and Sport. The PAMSEC is not a youth. The directors are not youth. The commissioners are not youth. So, why is it called Minister of Youth and Sport? Why can't we have a remodeled ministry for youth or for young people, where young people can head affairs in the various ministries? So it is time we need to restructure these things if you really want to develop the capacity of our young people. No youth development plan. You can imagine that in the entire Northeast, no state has a youth development plan. That's a few states are coming up with the state development plan. But the ministries all have ministry of youth development plan. There is no strategic document for the development and empowerment of young people. So youth programs, they are not well spread in the states, and they are too few to reach major youths across the state. For instance, when you go to Minister of Youth and Sport in maybe Adamawa State or in Taraba State, you hear issues, you ask them, sorry, in the last 2 years, how many young people have been empowered? The best they can tell you are no more than 3,000 young people. Why? Because there is no development plan. How can you empower only 2,000 people in a year in a state where you have millions of young people? So the ministries are underfunded. Go to the ministries, the Minister of Youth and Sports, the youth, they are underfunded. They are underfunded. Some of them, their budgets for programs doesn't exceed 10 million naira in a year. And they use it to fund National Youth Council of Nigeria for their meetings and programs, and even put NUBAS in or put NUTAS or all of those other national student union bodies on allowance or on training programs or meetings. So it's underfunded. Youth partners are not included in the budget planning and budget implementation. Many of you were registered with the Minister of Youth and Sports in your respective state. How many times have they called you for meetings? How many times have they called you for dialogue? How many times have they called you to look at issues of youth budgets? Let's talk about it together. So you see, there's not even a youth inclusion in the entire financial management of the ministries or agencies competent for young people. You understand? Then youth programs, they do not conform with global realities. Do you know that if you go to our ministries, look at our programs in the States, they are not global. Our young people that come out from those programs, they cannot compete at a global level with other young people in different African countries or even in some international, some European or Asian countries. Why? Because these things we're doing are archaic. They are not current. We are not current, so we are also not correct. So these are some of the youth issues that you need to begin to get familiar with in the Northeast. So as partners of the government, we are seeking not just a political change, but a legislation that clearly articulates youth development agenda in the state. So these are some of the things that we propose, which you can take up. Issues of 30% affirmative action, that anytime you are employing, you're appointing people as a governor, can you ensure that young people are there? In every ministerial appointment, in every agency board, let there be young people representation. That is very important. So these are some of the issues we can start talking about. For instance, let there be a review of the Ministry of Youth and Sports to ensure that the commissioner is competent and below 40 years. In fact, 40 years is too high. Below 35 years, below 30 years, young people can do it. The National Youth Policy placed the young people in youth age to 15 to 29 years. So these are things we should start talking about. That agencies representing young people should have 70% young people as appointees. But older citizens should also be carried along to play advisory roles in the board of those commissions. These are matters that we should begin to come up or state in our respective states. Then there is need for inclusion of youth stakeholders. Many of us we are registered with those ministries. We are partners with the state. But hardly have we been called, have young people been called for meetings? Hardly have youth-led organizations, youth-focused organizations been called for meetings for development purposes. Do you know that if there is effective partnership of youth stakeholders, we can train hundreds of thousands of young people in a year? So we need also a widespread youth development centers. These are youth issues that we need to start talking about. Minister of Youth should be mandated to have active youth development centers spread across the 3 senatorial districts in the state. Very important. We need to also partner with local and international partners for planning youth development strategic documents and also the likes. So these are matters that we should begin to come up with and take up with legislative agencies. So Leadtots, after several work, we came up with some motions along that line, which I'm going to be sharing with some of us. We came up with some of these motions because we felt that it's going to help us develop our young people and increase state commitment to young people. So in that line, we came up with a motion. We had a bill that we pushed. The bills were rejected by most of the states. It's a bill establishing youth development commission in Taraba State, we did that in Gombe State, we did that in Yobe State. As it is currently, none of these states have taken these things up. So Gombe State, Taraba State, Yobe State don't have any youth development commission. Everything that goes to young people goes to young people from the office of the governor or from the Minister of Youth. And if it's from the office of the governor, it's politically inclined. So you're getting the picture, everybody. So these are some of the things we need to start changing. It means your state, you're losing a lot of programs that would have come to young people. But you say that Basi Ward. Basi Ward are funded by even World Bank to do a lot of youth empowerment programs. So imagine if you have those commission. You see, it's going to be difficult for international partners to come into ministries and fund them because of the nature of ministries. But it's easy to partner financially with government agencies and government commissions. So look at the sample of what was passed in Bauchi State. Number one, that the executive arm of government in the state should always consider competent young people between the ages of 18 and 35 for appointment as commissioner for Ministry of Youth, as well as chairman, Bauchi State Commission for Youth and Women Development, BASIWA. Secondly, activation of the 3 youth development centers in 3 senatorial zones in the state. There is need for a youth development center that will become the hub of youth leadership and entrepreneurship development. The management of such centers should be inclusive of the Commissioner, Minister of Youth and Sport, Basi Ward, and civil society organizations that are youth-led and youth-focused. And now we're adding that it should even be with the community, host community. You see, youth development center will become a safe space where young people can have meetings and trainings in their respective areas. So then the last one is the development of state youth development plan for 5 years. This plan will contain the blueprint for the resource mobilization and program development of Nigerian youth. We shall have clear annual targets of youth beneficiaries. This is what we advocated for in the state. And luckily, Honorable Ghazali Abubakar from Gondwa East constituency moved this motion as for assembly on behalf of Leadtots. And it was seconded and got a lot of applause, and it was approved. Now what is left is for it to be taken to the executive so that they can take note of it and act on them duly. If possible, we would have preferred this ones to become law so that it can become part of what no governor can change it except with legislation. So these matters, you need to pick it up in your respective states. Yobe State, we went through different House of Assembly members and they turned it down. I can't imagine why people that were voted by majority of young people should turn down issues that are to develop young people. So we expect you to pick it up in your respective states and do different policy briefs or fact sheets, just like Shola taught us, using the different issues that are brought up for engagement in your respective states. So these are some of the issues that we're talking about. In conclusion, young people are critical sectors of every society. A genuinely inclusive society ensures that its youth participate in all affairs, harnessing their views in developing policies and implementation process. According to an independent research by the British Council, by 2030, youth, not oil, will be Nigeria's greatest asset. I say it again, youth and not oil will be Nigeria's greatest asset. So it is high time we begin to prioritize young people and develop them so that we can reap the socio-economic and the political and the educational dividends of this investment. Thank you very much. Time will not permit us. We need to hear the last person. But if you have any issue, you can put it up in the chat room. Like I see, a lot of us have put down a lot of matters in the chat room. Yes, I can see a lot of matters in the chat room. So from this particular presentation I've given to you, there are assignments which I'm going to be sharing with us, which we're supposed to do before you're going to be giving your certificates in that line. Thank you very much, everyone, for your audience, for patiently following. I wish you all the best. Okay, thank you. We'll go straight to the last part of the presentation, and we have our own executive director to take us through matters of advocacies and community mobilization. Good day, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. Your voice is a bit low.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Be better now.
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Okay. My name is Nicholas Oshoja. Just like you heard from the introduction, I want to appreciate every one of you for staying through this period. I want to thank you so very much for your time. And okay, just a minute. Let me do something, please.
So you can unmute yourself now, sir.
Okay, thank you, Sheon. So through advocacy for change, through advocacy and communication, advocacy and community mobilization for change. Like I said, I appreciate every one of us. We have a lot of persons here, about 44 participants. I would have loved to mention everyone's name for your effort, for staying throughout these weeks, even though the training is coming to an end. And I want to believe that we have one way or the other impacted you. And we want to believe that we are launching new leaders, new set of youth advocates to the community to begin to advocate and begin to speak for the benefit of our people, our communities, and our country at large. And so, like I said, advocacy for change, it's what we'll be talking about this afternoon. And so this session, we'll be looking at what an effective advocacy is, the steps involved in conducting advocacy sessions with the target audience, with the aim of promoting policy change, new law, bill, health, education, and just name it in our community, our respective state. So at the end of this training activity, we want to believe that we'll understand what an advocacy is and how you'll be able to define advocacy, describe it, and then explain it in details, and you'll be able to design an advocacy plan. And so what is advocacy? What comes to your mind when you hear the word advocacy? And here I said advocacy is an activity by an individual or group to influence decision within political, economic, and social institutions. Advocacy is also speaking up. You being able to speak out for the benefit of others. There are people who have no voice. We're not talking about the physical voice to speak out. There are people who don't even know that, yes, they have challenges. But yet, when you begin to see some issues and begin to tell them this is an issue confronting their community, you'll be able to speak out for them. And so advocacy is also speaking up, drawing attention of policymakers, including community leaders, drawing their attention to an issue that is maybe bedeviling the community. Even in our immediate communities, advocacy means taking decision to create change. And so just know it, taking decision to what? To create change. And so there are several things in our communities that we want them to change. And so it is through advocacy that we can create that platform to change some of these things around our communities. So it is a process per time. It's a process, a strategy that you put in place to be able to achieve, to resolve issues confronting our communities. A well-designed activity targeted toward to decision makers or to policy makers. I've heard Mr. Shola Shehu talking about policy makers, how to influence this policy, how to draft policy and all the rest. So how do you now influence all these policies? It's through what? Through advocacy, directed at influencing policy, laws and regulations, and programs or what? Or funding. So these are ways that we can address on policy change is through what? Through advocacy. So advocacy is what I said is a strategy you put in place for you to be able to what? To come up with a resolution for an activity. Who is an advocate? Or let me ask if I can see from charts, what's it an advocate? I mean, who is an advocate? Or what comes to your mind when you hear the word advocate? Can I see, maybe, can you just give me a chart? Hello, are we together? Okay. Okay. One who stands for others, very good. An advocate is an influencer of change, very good. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yes, an advocate is an individual who is convinced about an issue. An individual who is convinced about an issue, who strongly supports an issue. Now, sometimes even in our locality, in our places of work, do you know there are times the drainages are blocked and we are waiting for the government to come to our aid, to come and clear the drainages, the drainage in front of our houses. When you go to Jekade Ferry in Taraba State, you go to the New Jerusalem in Yobe State, or in Bakinkura here in Bauchi State, and you see so many of these drainages blocked. And do you know what? We are waiting for who? For the government to come and take responsibility for our actions. Yes, we are not saying they shouldn't clear our drainages, but it's something we can as well do. That is an issue. That is an issue. So if you are convinced about these issues and it's in front of your house, because you need to start from your immediate environment. And so when you begin to take responsibility for your action, you understand? So you are advocating for other people to what? To come, to begin to learn from you. You are mobilizing people already through your actions of cleaning your immediate environment. So somebody who is convinced about an issue is an advocate. An advocate is a person who argues for or who recommends or support a cause or a policy, who have ability to what? To speak out and to influence others, like one of our brothers has said there. Ready to mobilize human and financial resources for successful advocacy on issues. So that's an advocate. Why do we advocate? We advocate to what? To build support for a cause. We advocate to encourage others to support our cause. We advocate to influence reform. We advocate to make difference in people's lives. She will make mention of a bill and motion that Leadtots have drafted, and these bills are being submitted in this state, Bauchi, Yobe, Taraba, and Bauchi State, Gombe State rather. So these bills are in this state, and so many youths are not even aware that such bills are being submitted in these houses of assemblies. And in Bauchi here, it was read on the floor of the house as a motion. And how many youth are aware that an issue like that there are people that are fighting for the cause of the youth? Yet, Sheon has just shared a slide on how our people are being, the politicians are using the youth to gain influence, to garner support during voting activity. Now, this is the time for you to ask them to begin to create an avenue or a platform for you to be self-employed. And we said strategic centers should be set up in 3 senatorial districts in each of these states, where youth can come and learn trade, can learn, so much more, that they can learn to be empowered. These are some of the issues that we have noticed, and we said, now this thing should be put into law. And so how many youths have noticed that, yes, this, because we are only concerned about following the politicians, but not paying attention to what these politicians are doing. And there's an honorable member who has made this presentation in the floor of the House of Bauchi State House of Assembly. How many Bauchi youth are in support of that? How many youth have taken their time to really know that such a thing is going on? So that is where you now begin to team yourself together, to bring yourself together to influence that decision, to support that cause that, yes, this honorable member have put in front of the House. Process of advocacy. Process of advocacy. Say the advocacy, the design of an advocacy campaign involves proposing options and making decisions in a systematic and stepwise manner. The justification of any advocacy campaign or intervention is the existence of a problem or an issue. So therefore, the starting point for designing campaign or intervention is the identification of a problem. You must identify a problem. You must know that there's an issue. That is the process. And there are so many issues to resolve. Design an advocacy campaign entails answering some of these questions that I'm going to show you. Now, you must identify an issue. Do not tell me there are no issues. There are issues. How do I know that? Why do we have girl child education problem? Why do we have so much numbers of students or pupils in primary 1? You have so many numbers of girls in primary 1. And getting to primary 2, primary 3, you begin to see decline. You begin to see how this number is reducing. You begin to see how this number is reducing. That is dropout. Getting to primary 6, you begin to see few girls that are into those classes. This is an issue in education that we can begin to speak about. In GSS 1, the same thing. And as they are getting to GSS 2, GSS 3, before they finish secondary school, you begin to see so many dropout, and you begin to see that, you begin to hear, oh, so girl has been married. Yes, we're not saying there are no challenges we can say, so many people will say poverty has contributed. Yes, I agree. But this is an issue now. Now we should begin to speak about retention and completion of the girl child education in our state, more especially in the northern states and now not in the northeast, because we will not be talking about that if you are in Anambra State, for example. We'll be talking about the boy's child, right? We'll be talking about the male child education, because those ones they tend to go to the business side. But here in the north is the girl child education, so that is a problem. Now, what about haven't you been to a community where they don't have a borehole, they don't have water to drink, now you begin to advocate. These people might not even know that is a challenge to them. But because you've seen that, you have an experience, you are exposed, so you have seen this, and you begin to speak for these people. You begin to visit water board, you begin to visit Ruwasa, so that these people can be able to get water to drink in their various communities. Now you have started identifying an issue, and you want to start what? You want to start advocating for them. Now, like I said, this question, what is the issue or problem that needs an advocacy intervention? Whom does it affect? What could be done to address it? And what is this object of such an action? Whom do we want to reach with our advocacy? So these are some of the questions you should be penciling down. Now, this is an issue. Who is he affecting? Why are we having cholera outbreak yearly? Why are we having an annual cholera outbreak? What is the cause? How do we address it? Who do we go to? The Ministry of Health? Yes. But you begin to, you put your marshals in town, you put your strategies in place so that you'll be able to put solutions in place as well. Now you begin to atomize, you begin to get this problem in place. How do we measure our impact or achievement after drafting all these issues that you have noted down? Which individual or organization could we work with to realize the changes we are looking for? Yes, it might not be, you might not do it alone. Can't you partner with any organization? Can't you partner with people around your community? Can't you identify people who are passionate, who are patriotic about some of these issues? And so when you begin to bring them together, people who knows the challenges of these communities, then you begin to partner with them, note them down, begin to identify them so that they'll be able to help you to fight the cause. Now you're an advocate. So the answer to the above questions from a distinct initial framework for action to achieve measurable effect. Now, step in conducting an effective advocacy. How do we conduct an effective advocacy? I've been speaking grammars. And so how do we now begin to put steps in place to conduct an effective advocacy? I've put 9 steps out here. I said 1, identify the advocacy issue. That is what I've been hammering on. First, this is an issue that is confronting your community, your society, or a community that you have visited. And you want to give them a right-based approach. Maybe they don't even know that they have this problem. We have been to communities where you see the Sangaya system, the Almajiri system of education, where they cycle around their center and they are reading the Quran. And you begin to see where children will just go behind the building and defecate. And when you begin to speak to these people that see, the breeze blow these feces back to their centers. And so don't you think, you begin to speak to the malams, don't you think that these children will need a toilet? Because if an outbreak of cholera happened in that community or in that center, I bet you all of them will be affected. So it's an issue you have noted. Now, you formulate goals and objectives. At the end, if you're able to dig a toilet for these young ones, what is going to be the goal? A lasting goal. We've just talked about the cholera, so it will end. Right? Identify target audience that you want to advocate to. The people that you know that will provide support to fight this cause. Develop the message, a precise message. A very short message that will not bore whoever you are advocating to. A very concise message that, because politicians will not listen to a lengthy message. Now develop an advocacy message that hits the point of what you want them to do. Explaining yourself, then build support. You bring people around you who you know that, yes, they are actually in support of what is happening. We've made mention of the dropout, the school dropout in our communities. It happens everywhere, not only in your community. So it happens everywhere. So what about the potable water that you go to community that you don't need to see, you don't get to see the boreholes there. These are issues. Now develop an action plan. Then raise funds, because even printing of the paper that you want to make presentation, because you might not have laptop, it entails what? You raising funds to what? To print those papers. Then implement the strategy. The last one is evaluate the strategy, because you come back to evaluate, have you made progress? You go back to the issue again and begin to analyze, have you made progress? There are people that you knock their doors and you pay advocacy to and they promise. Have you been able to reach back? Who have you spoken to? Have you collected any number to call back? If yes, the date that was set for you to come back is still very valid. Because these are some of the issues, these are some of the things that you need to be evaluating, because you need to go back these 9 steps. So these are steps you need to have, or you need to go through in conducting an effective advocacy. Now, how do you identify advocacy issues? Can I have some response from you? How do you identify advocacy issues? I want to see you, I want to see some chats. I want to see you responding to this question. How do you identify advocacy issue or issues around you? How do you think you can identify these issues that are confronting our community? How do you just walk into a community and you see an issue? You see something and you said, this is an issue. How do you begin to identify community, advocacy issue? You know that you are going to advocate for these people. Okay, orally, verbally, through people's complaint that has lingered. Okay, through observation. Thank you, Emmanuel Joseph. Michael Ojo, thank you. Okay. How do we identify advocacy issue? One of it is what? Through facts. True fact that yes, this thing is happening. I've just shared with you in our communities where we have centers where there are no toilets whatsoever. And the community is littered with feces and urine. And so this is a fact, you have seen this. Through research conducted either by you or by maybe some professionals, that yeah, this is an issue. Through data that have been in place, that have been put out for us in the public domain. These are ways that you can identify advocacy issues. Through what? Through personal stories. People might have said this. You've watched it on television. People are talking about how they have been battling with typhoid fever as a result of what? Lack of potable water. So through personal stories, through interviews, somebody have made mention of that, through interviews. And these are some of the ways that you can identify advocacy issues. Now, establishing goals and objectives. Establishing goals and objectives. Hello, are we still together? Okay, so goal is a statement of the general result to be achieved over the long time as a result of an advocacy intervention, as well as other intervention. So what you want to achieve at a long run, at the end of this advocacy, what do you stand to achieve? What is going to be the result, the overall result of this problem when you finish this advocacy, and when answers or a solution are being provided? What is going to be the in thing, what is going to be the result, what is going to be the goal. An advocacy objective is the result expected following completion of an advocacy campaign, and say it must be what? It must be smart. What I mean here by being smart is, one, it must be specific. The objective must be what? Specific. Your goal must be what? Must be specific. A well-defined and clear or unambiguous objective. It must be measurable. That is with specific criteria that measure your progress towards the accomplishment of the goal. The next one is it must be achievable. It's something that can be achievable. It's not something that you just put in front and you just believe that, yes, we are just doing it for doing its sake. You are going for an advocacy and you are coming up with a very big problem that you know that is not achievable. No, your advocacy objective must be what? It must be achievable. It's something that is attainable and not impossible to achieve. And it must be realistic. That is within reach. Within reach, realistic and relevant to your life purpose. And it must be timely. There must be a time bound that this is when this advocacy is going to be conducted, and this is when you're going to end it. And this is when you are thinking of embarking on resolving these issues. The purpose is to create what? Urgency. It's every issues need an urgent resolution. So you need to begin to create all these things in place. So again, I say our advocacy objective must be what? It must be smart. Now, the stakeholders analysis development of advocacy message and what? And tactics. Stakeholders or audience analysis is the process of organizing various groups into specific advocacy categories. The beneficiaries, the partners, the eyelashes, the decision makers, and even our adversary. So our stakeholders, the people you want to advocate to, what about those that you want to advocate for? The beneficiaries. They are our stakeholders. So you need to carry everyone along, and no one should be left behind. And a key message is a concise, and like I said, I've defined this. I've told you how to draft your advocacy message, that it must be well concise and must be persuasive statement that describe what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. And it's a statement tailored to specific stakeholder or groups. And a key message define the issue, the state possible solution, and describe actions needed and benefit expected or motivational factors. So when you are advocating for these beneficiaries, you carry them along to where? To the stakeholders, because they will be able to tell their story better than you that is not from that community. That means if you are advocating for a different community, if you are part of that community, then you should know the problem better. Then you should be able to advocate and say what is in that community, the issue that is confronting that community. So advocacy approaches and tactics are specific advocacy communication techniques used for different stakeholders, So please, I said everyone is important when you are going for an advocacy. So do not neglect your people. Do not neglect anybody. Everyone is important when it comes to advocacy. And I'm not saying you should gather crowd, but even the people living with disability are very, very important. I will share a story where a community were advocating for school. This is a community that do not have any class, any block of classroom in their community. And they need classrooms. They need education. So they started grouping themselves. And they started advocating. They started, okay, coming up with programs, coming up with meetings on how to begin to mobilize and meet the
Okay, hold on, everyone. We are trying to rectify the matter.
Did I share my screen? Sorry, everyone, for that technical issues. We're very sorry. I was sharing a story before the network disappeared, right? Like I was saying, I said the blind man just reluctantly asked what was going on. And they shared with him that they are trying to get his school in their community. And you know what? Funny enough, the daughter of this blind man is married to the chairman of the Universal Basic Education in that state. And it's just a one dial. So you see, he wasn't mobilized to join that meeting. He wasn't called. So you don't neglect anybody. Everyone is important when it comes to advocacy. Everyone is important. So advocacy approaches and tactics, it can be through direct interpersonal communication. Please, can you all hear me? If you can hear me, can I have a yes at the chat group? If you can hear me, please. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, can I have a yes in the chat group, please? Okay, top. Fine. That is good. Thank you. So advocacy approaches and tactics, it can be through direct interpersonal communication, it can be through media, through radio, television, it can be through social media such as bloggers, it can be through newspapers and flyers. So these are ways that you can carry out advocacy tactics out. Then advocacy, stakeholders categories, we have the primaries, we have the secondary, the decision makers, the adversary. These people are very, very important. We have those we call the gatekeepers. We have the influencers. So these people are very important. You don't neglect any one of them because everyone is important to the message that you want to pass. Do not look at some persons that is because they have money. So these are the people you must carry to, you must advocate to or you must advocate for. No, everyone is important. There are gatekeepers, there are people even, it's just like you're going to, you're going to Anemia Palace. Those guys, those other Dogeri, they call them, in our palace guide, they are so instrumental. I have seen somebody who a messenger, he's just a messenger in high institution, has given admission to. He's a messenger, but he has changed the life of that student. He was able to give admission to a student. So everyone is important. Everyone is a stakeholder. How do you organize an advocacy? There's no time I would have asked you to help me write some things. One, you marshal your allies. There is strength in numbers. Do not, in as much as somebody has agreed to follow you, has believed in the cause that you are fighting for, please, that person should join you. Identify the people in your camp and getting them to commit to an advocacy effort. Who are the people you need to bring in? These are the questions you need to ask. Create a coordination structure. It is very important. So it's vital to have a single coordinating individual or body at the core of your advocacy effort. Now, coordinating individual or group should be what? Of course, involve all the participants as much as possible. There may be times when the whole advocacy group will need to trust a coordinator. So there should be a leader. And let me tell you one thing, being a leader doesn't mean that you must be the one to speak when you go for an advocacy. Yes, you might be the leader, you might be one person fantastic that can coordinate, but there's somebody who is better leader. That makes you team. That makes the team. There's somebody who introduces every other person. So these are some of the things. You have synergy. These are things you need to put in place. You can go there and say, this is the person that is reading the message that we are going with today. That doesn't make you a less leader. You are only trying to what? To delegate and to be a team leader or a team player as well. Ensure you do your homework. When you are going with this fact that we're talking about, please know this fact very well. I have been to an advocacy where data were generated and those data were not the true reflection of what was presented there. And we were being presented with the genuine papers at the ministry of, at one of the ministries. So go with facts, do your homework very well before what? Before you go for an advocacy. Are we together? So please, you need to know the other side. If you have opponent, or if there are drawbacks to what you are advocating for, you need to know the argument against it. It will be of good help. Now, like I said, you know your facts, know your data, know what you are going to advocate for. Do not go to an advocacy and somebody was already there advocating for the same thing. So when you have such thing, please join forces with such groups or such person. Draft your message. I'm still talking about that message. Draft your message, and a well-defined message is easier to pass on to your allies. It's easier for them to understand and less likely to be what? To be misstated. A clear message is easier for stakeholders and the public to understand, especially if they are unfamiliar with the issue. A message that is specific and concise is more likely to be held favorably by stakeholders, especially if it asks for some specific action. Like I said from the beginning, politicians dislike ambiguity. Do not begin to tell them stories. Go straight to the point. Create a communication network that works. An individual or small group responsible for coordinating communication. You can create WhatsApp group, any different platform that you can use to communicate to each other when information are coming up before you embark on advocacy. Cultivate, the sixth one I say, cultivate the media. Use the media appropriately. It could be social media, could be, print media, anyone that's available for you to use. Take a long view. So one of the most fundamental pieces of a solid advocacy effort is the understanding that advocacy takes time. Your group has to be willing to keep at it, even in the face of any issue, defeat or wars or indifference. You need to stick to the word, to your focus. You need to be focused. Perhaps the hardest part for advocacy, for advocates to swallow, is that success doesn't mean it's all over. Even when you achieve it, like I said, you need to monitor everything again all over. Now, how to approach policymaker? Your goals should be what? Should be clear. I said it earlier on, should be specific and involve something your target audience can actually try to accomplish. Legislators and other policymakers have many demands on their time and many people asking them to do something. So if your message isn't clear or specific and accomplishable, they are not likely to want to spend much time listening to you. So you need to as we discussed, clear goals are easier to understand for both those you are trying to convince and those working with you. You need to put all these things in a very concise, very simple language that everybody will understand. So it has to be smart. I'm still measuring it again. It has to be it has to be smart. So we'll be asking questions, but then we have We have another another slide to present. That is community mobilization. Please just hold on. Let me share this. Okay, I'm going to rush through this. On community mobilization, so what is community? What comes to your mind when you hear the word community? A community is a set of, a community is a set of people living together with common interest. And so I can tell you that for the number of us that are in this meeting already, in this training, we are a community, we have formed a community. And because there are so many things that have bound us together, and like I stated here, we all live in a community, and there are different things that bind us together, and we're trying to see those things that bound us together. I will rush through them. I said beliefs, what we believe in, our values, our language, our territory, our religion, our culture, our occupation. And some of these things, when these things are in place, we are in a community already. And what is community mobilization? Or what is mobilization first? Bringing people together, being able to gather people. You are mobilizing people. To what? For a cause. So mobilization is bringing everyone to help you what? To help you resolve an issue or carry out a project. In our community, we have so much going on. Sometimes schools are being built. Contractors will just come and build rubbish and go away. And meanwhile, it's in our community. And you cannot mobilize people to begin to question the materials that are being used in those in constructing that school, whether they are genuine, whether they are fake materials. Now this is where you begin to set up a kind of group that we're able to mobilize and begin to put your community first. Whatever is coming to the community should be what is genuine, should be what the community will vouch for, should be what will stay test of time. There are places you go and a school is built today, after 1 year, the roof is blown off because substandard materials are being used, because the community did not checkmate these contractors. So bringing people together is mobilization. Then community mobilization is a process through which action is stimulated by a community itself or by others that is planned, carried out, and evaluated by a community individuals, groups, or organizations on participatory and sustainable basis to improve service levels so as to enhance the overall standard of living in that community. You can see a good example here. This is a community-led action that is going on. Then why community mobilization? Why? Why do you conduct community mobilization? To create demand for interventions, to increase access to what? To service. Like I said earlier on in our advocacy, you gather people to what? To begin to tell them this is an issue we have. That process of gathering, you are mobilizing people already. And to improve service delivery in that community, to scale up an intervention. So many things are going on. Haven't you seen on social media where this rail that have been constructed in some state are being vandalized? The question I ask is, are there no community members to prevent stealing of these items in our communities? You see drivers really, doing away with diesels of some trucks that are carrying out construction in our communities. Nobody stops them. So why community mobilization? One is, we said, is to increase effectiveness and efficiency of intervention. Increasing community ownership. You need to own it. Any project that is going on in your community, own that project. Be able to own it. It's the community project. The government will come and set up one thing or the other for the benefit of the community. Please ensure you protect that thing because it's for the community. It's for the benefit of the community. And that takes me to benefit of community mobilization in projects. In a project, we said it improved program design, increase community or individual and group capacity to identify and satisfy their needs. It improved program quality. These are the benefits. This is why you mobilize. This is why you go for an advocacy. Improve program evaluation. Now, the key tasks involved in community mobilization: developing an ongoing dialogue between community members, create or strengthening community organizations. Yes, you can set up, because of your action or what you guys are doing, you want to do in your community, that mobilization can metamorphose into forming a committee, into forming a group that will be registered, that can even begin to get funding to carry out projects, to begin to carry out some developmental project in your community. So develop an ongoing dialogue between community members, promoting community members' participation. So when you bring everybody together, it creates, like what I said, it creates ownership. It gives you ownership. You own the project, and it now gives every member to contribute his or her own quota to whatever is going on in the community. So participation. Working in partnership with community. So it brings partnership, synergy. It brings leakages, that it breaks, the gaps will be what? Will be bridged. It brings understanding, oneness in the community. So committing enough time to work with communities or with partners who works with them. Assist in linking communities with external resources. Now, I said involve all stakeholders, like you heard from the beginning. Who are our stakeholders? So I'm going to just keep this because we've discussed this intensively. Now, identification of deprived, neglected groups. You begin to identify them. Who are those people that are deprived? Why are they deprived? How can their participation be enhanced? So identify marginalized groups in your community. That is economically deprived group of people. Their impact too is needed. Women, because we live in a community where we have one gender stereotype. We don't like involving women when it comes to decision making. We don't want to involve them when it comes to, they have a greater number. We can mobilize them to come and vote, but sometimes we don't vote for them. We don't even engage them. So this is the time for you to begin to work with women. Now, tribal, indigenous, disabled people, minority groups, just name them. Identify everyone. Be gender sensitive. Because there are houses you cannot enter. Those of us that stays in the north here, you know that. But women can break through. Through their weddings, they can begin to sensitize people. Through child naming rather. Through child naming, they go and they have groups that they can talk to. But you know what? We neglect them. Please be gender sensitive. Role of community mobilizers. As a mobilizer, you are bringing people together, you are building trust, you are encouraging participation, you're facilitating discussion and decision-making, you are helping things to run smoothly. And facilitation in community mobilization process, all of these are the roles of a community mobilizer. So every one of you should be a community mobilizer. To bring what? To bring benefit to our community. It can begin to form security arm. How do we enhance community participation? Can you just write one? How do we enhance community participation? Just state one example that you know that you can enhance community participation. Are we still together? Okay, through community meetings, gathering people at one platform, village literacy fair, sports and games, pamphlet and handout given out to people. It can be an avenue to gather people together through community meetings. Ensure you participate when one is going on. You mustn't be the one organizing it, but you can be a participant as well. And that brings what? Participation in community development. So skill needed for community mobilizer, you must have a good attitude, a willingness to examine and challenge their own assumption, opinions, and belief. You must have a good attitude. You must have skills, good communication skills, listening skills, participatory learning and action, and other techniques to help facilitation awareness of political, gender, and cultural issues and relationships. You must, like I said, you must have knowledge. Know what you are going out to talk. Please, the community mobilization process, know knowledge about it. The knowledge of education, health, if you are going to advocate for any issue concerning education, please behold, know what you are going there to discuss on education. If it is health, you have knowledge of what you are going out to discuss. Other skills are not that may be needed at different stages. Ability to help communities form organization, advocacy skills, project planning and management skills. Then some qualities of community mobilizer, we said good communication skills, good facilitation skill, good listener. You must be a very good listener. You don't shut anybody down when they are talking. You give everybody have his or her right, even though you know it is not right. There's a way you listen to that person and you present your opinion and he buys it. Well-dressed. You cannot be going for an advocacy or you are mobilizing, you are going for community mobilization. And you don't take time to know the way and manner these people dress. As a female or as a lady, you are putting on a trouser going to where people don't get to see the likes of a lady putting on trousers to the community. I'm talking about some of these remote communities. You're putting on, when you are going to an emir palace, you need to wear caps. And you need to go with a veil as a lady. So please be honest. Be well dressed. I'm still emphasizing on that. Some of the do's and don'ts, we say, please ensure you go with a diary, because whatever happened, you need to be jotted down. The purpose of the visit need to be jotted down. Activities carried out, the accomplishment of or output of the day, observation, challenges, recommendations, what the follow-up, who and who do you need to meet at the end. Now, role of community mobilizer, the roles of community mobilizer. Like I said, get prepared, know your goal, know your target audience, know the skills you need, know the basic concept and the outside resources needed. So I allow you to look at this this slide very well. That is why I was quiet. That all what we have been saying, be knowledgeable of so many things you are carrying out. There are places you go to. There's one old man that is just sitting looking at you, and you think that old man has never gone out of that community. Let me tell you one thing. He might be a retired civil servant, and he knows better than you. He's just listening to you. So you need to have knowledge of whatever you are going to present, because there are people that knows better than what you are presenting. So you need to have knowledge of what you are taking out to these people. There's a woman that will just be sitting and be looking at you with stick. That doesn't mean that she has ended her life in that community. She might be a retiree who has come home to what? to stay. And so you need to be knowledgeable, you need to be skillful. And like I said, you need to be respectful, because you respect everyone when you are going out for community mobilization or for an advocacy. Thank you so very much. At this point, I want to appreciate you for listening and to wait and hear from you. Any question? Thank you, Sheung.